Hello everybody. Hope y'all are doing well today. Alright, we're going to talk about The Horse and His Boy first. I hope y'all are enjoying this book. It's one of my favorites. Let's just recap what's happened so far in the book. So we have Shasta, a young boy who is living with an old fisherman, and he finds out that he is not the fisherman's son, but that he was found by the fisherman, and he's basically his slave. And he meets Bree, a talking horse, which he's never encountered before, neither have we. And they make a plan to head north to Narnia. All right, and along the way, they meet Hwin, another talking horse, and Aravis, Hwin's rider. And they are also heading north for reasons of their own. None of them want to be recognized because they are fleeing for some reason or another. And so they hatch a plan to get through the great city of Tashbaan. And Tashbaan is where the Tisroc lives. And the Tisroc is the king of this area called Calormen, where our story takes place. All right, Calormen is where Arshish lived, which is down here, which you can't see. Arshish was the fisherman, excuse me, who raised Shasta. So this is where Shasta and Bree start from. And they travel along this road until somewhere in here they meet up with Hwin and Aravis. Okay, so they're heading for the city of Tashbaan, which is here, and it's the capital of Calormen, and this is where the capital city is and where the king, or the Tisroc, lives. Now the interesting thing about Tashbaan is you can see that it's on a river, and it's built on an island in the middle of the river. And I don't know if the book that you're using has illustrations or not, but this is one of the most famous illustrations of this particular city. It's done by Pauline Baynes, and she is the illustrator for all of the Narnia books, the older ones anyway. And you can see that it's built on the water, and it goes up to a point where at the top is the Tisroc's palace. Okay, so you can also notice that there's a bridge here. In the next chapter they're going to be crossing over that bridge going into the city. They have to pass through there to get beyond. Okay, now this is the book that I'm reading, and this is a complete collection of all the Chronicles of Narnia. It has all 6, I think, stories in it. And let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories. Okay? And we're on The Horse and His Boy. So another book that you may be using is the one I had up in the beginning. This is just The Horse and His Boy. I don't know if you have this version or not, but this one is kind of old and ragged, so I try not to use this one too much. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, let's go over the vocabulary, which I forgot to do last time. I'm sorry about that. We have rebuke. This is for chapter 3 we're talking about. We have rebuke, which means to chastise or correct. Dowry is money or goods that a woman takes with her to her marriage. Pith is, you think of pith as the white stuff in your orange, the little white particles that I always pick off when I eat an orange. But in this case, in this context of our story, it means the essence of something, the main idea. And that's when Aravis told her story. I think Bree said she's told the pith of her story, the essence or the main idea. Okay, and a scimitar is a short, curved sword. All right. So question 1 says, Aravis uses the phrase, the sun was dark in her eyes, when she refers to her stepmother. And then she uses the same phrase in reference to herself, when thinking about having to marry Ahashta. And then she uses the same phrase again in reference to Ahashta. So the question was, what do you think this phrase means? Excuse me. There could be a lot of different opinions as to what it means, but it's generally the thought that the person whose sun was dark in their eyes is unhappy or displeased or angry or not pleased with a certain situation or thing. Okay. Number 2. Concerning the 2 horses, Hwin or Bree, which of the 2 was more humble? Now, there could be also differing opinions on this, but I will give you my opinion, and I'm going to back it up with dialogue from the book. I'm going to read to you from near the end of chapter 3, and this is why I think that Hwin is more humble. "My dear Hwin," said Aravis rather scornfully, as if anyone could mistake Bree for anything but a war horse, however you disguise him. This is when they were talking about going into Tashbaan and having to disguise themselves so no one would know who they were. And she's saying, you can't disguise him. He's a magnificent war horse. And then Bree says, I should think not indeed, snorting and letting his ears go ever so slightly back. I know it's not a very good plan, said Hwin, but I think it's our only chance. And we haven't been groomed for ages, and we're not looking quite ourselves, at least I'm sure I'm not. I do think if we get well plastered with mud and go along with our heads down as if we're tired and lazy, and don't lift our hoofs hardly at all, we might not be noticed. And our tails ought to be cut shorter, not neatly, you know, but all ragged. My dear madam, said Bree, have you pictured to yourself how very disagreeable it would be to arrive in Narnia in such a state? Or, I'm sorry, to arrive in Narnia in that condition? Well, said Hwin humbly, there's the key word. She was a very sensible mare. The main thing is to get there. Okay, so she wasn't too concerned about looking bad if it furthered her agenda or her goal to get to Narnia. So that's why I think that Hwin is the more humble. And as you go on in the story, you'll learn more about Bree and Hwin, and just keep an eye out for what their characters are like and what they learn along the way. Okay, also I want to show you that on the front of this book there's the picture of the lion, and this is, the lion is Aslan, as you may or may not know, and he is one of the major characters in all of the Narnia books. Okay, so the last question was, where did the group agree to meet if they happened to get separated in Tashbaan? And what they agreed to was called the Tombs, which is right outside of Tashbaan. There is an area here called the Ancient Tombs of the Kings. And this is where they plan to meet. Okay? All right. So that's all for now. Next is chapter 4, and what happens when they actually go into Tashbaan. All right, so now let's switch gears and talk about your beloved hand-washing papers. Okay, here's our keyword outline. We've talked about paragraph 1, an introduction into the whole concept of hand-washing. Then we talked about paragraph 2, the how to wash your hands. Paragraph 3 was when we should wash our hands, how often, and what circumstances we should wash our hands. And so today I'm going to go over paragraph 4, the keyword outline for the conclusion of our whole paper, which is going to kind of recap what we talked about and maybe add a couple more ideas or statistics from this infographic. Specifically, some of these here about the different kinds of germs and where you might find them, which is kind of gross. Okay, let's go to paragraph 4. So, on the infographic, we saw that over 150 kinds of germs can live on your hands. The flu germs, for instance, can be found on money, dollars or coins of any sort, because think about it, money changes hands from person to person, from store back to the person, from the person back to another store. So it can contain lots of germs. Cold germs might be found on your phone, or your parent's phone, or your friend's phone. Anything you touch can have germs on it. But this is just an example of one place you might frequently find germs. Maybe there are strep germs from the basketball you played with this afternoon, or the tennis racket you used, or whatever kind of sports equipment you may have played with, or maybe even your game controller for your video game. Cold germs live for 24 hours on, this looks like a table, but it's supposed to be a desk, but you could say tables, desks, furniture, and doorknobs. Okay, so these are all just giving examples of, you know, people, we need to wash our hands, because don't you know that these germs are everywhere? On money, on your phone, on your balls, on your tables and doors. Washing hands definitely is important to combat germs, exclamation mark. Okay, we're ending up here, and we are recapping and restating what we've stated up here and possibly in other places. And for a clincher, I simply put, please wash your hands, exclamation mark. Remember that your clincher has to repeat at least one word from the title, which you haven't made yet, and at least 2 words from your topic sentence. So go back up to your topic sentence, and I have washing hands is important to combat germs. So washing hands is repeated down here with wash hands. Okay, so that's at least 2 words. If you wanted to make a longer sentence, you could say, remember to wash your hands to combat germs, or, you know, you can make up whatever sentence you want here to conclude your paper. All right, so that is paragraph 4, keyword outline. I will post a copy of this on the forum in case you didn't get it all in during the video. But now I want to talk about some examples, because on your outline, on your checklist, you have some requirements here. ly adverb, who, which clause, strong verb, because clause, quality adjective, and cross this out because this is not required. And alliteration. So all of these have to be included in your paragraphs. So I'm going to give you some examples of how you can include those in your paper. And frankly, it was hard even for me to come up with some examples in this type of paper, because it's not a very descriptive paper, but you could make it work. For example, if you're trying to fit a who, which clause in, these are 2 examples. Cold germs, which can live for 24 hours, there's your who, which clause, and notice that there's a comma before it and after it, are just waiting for your touch on doorknobs and desks. Okay, who, which clause. Another example, handling money, which can be coated in countless germs, there's your who, which clause, is one way that germs are spread. Again, you have a comma before your who, which clause and after your who, which clause. And notice here I even used an alliteration, can, coated, countless. Okay, an alliteration is 3 words close to each other that start with the same sound. Can be coated in countless germs. Okay, alliterations make your paper more interesting to read. Okay, who, which clauses, surrounded by commas. All right. Now let's talk about ly adverbs. Here's an example. Flu germs are famously found on franc notes as well as dollar bills around the world. All right, here we have the F sound repeated for alliteration. Flu, famously, found, franc. Notice you can have some small words in between. And I wouldn't normally include this word in the alliteration because there are 2 words in between it. But it does add to the sound. Flu germs are famously found on franc notes as well as dollar bills around the world. But your ly adverb is famously. Another example, amazingly, ly adverb, cold germs can live for 24 hours on a desk or a doorknob. Okay, so these are ideas that we've already talked about in our keyword outline about how the germs are on the desks and doorknobs, how they're on the money. Here again is the money and the doorknobs and desk skin. Okay, lastly, because clauses. Because bad bacteria and viruses are found virtually everywhere, that's your because clause, and you have to have a comma after it. Washing our hands is definitely important to combat germs. Okay, notice here, again, I have an alliteration. Because bad bacteria. 3 B sounds right in a row. I also have another ly adverb here. And actually, there's another one here, virtually and definitely. Because bad bacteria and viruses are found virtually everywhere, washing our hands is definitely important to combat germs. Okay, and lastly, you might just catch strep throat because of that basketball you played with today. Okay, here's your because clause. And remember, when a because clause comes at the end of a sentence, you do not need a comma, only if it comes at the beginning of a sentence. Okay? The because clause is because of that basketball you played with today. Okay, and notice that there's you can make a case for alliteration here. Because basketball. There's 3 B sounds. B, b, b. Okay? So, those are some examples of how you can add interest to your paper and make it a little more sophisticated. Okay? I think that's all we have for today. So, I wish you happy writing. You're going to be writing paragraph 4 that is due on Tuesday. So you should have plenty of time for that. And also reading chapter 4 in The Horse and His Boy. So enjoy, don't work too hard, and have a great weekend. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.